As the SS Horizon cut through the pitch-black Atlantic under a canopy of stars glittering like distant promises, I leaned against the bridge railing during my evening watch, the salt-tanged breeze sighing through the creaking rigging, while the engine's steady thrum lulled me into a familiar, deceptive calm. In my mid-40s, after decades commanding cargo ships on these endless crossings, I'd grown accustomed to the routine, logging precise entries in my captain's journal by lamplight, sharing hearty meals in the mess hall where laughter rang against the bulkheads, and stealing moments to gaze upward, finding quiet peace in the vast isolation that swallowed us whole. My days blended together, poring over navigational charts with a disciplined eye, swapping tales of stormy passages and near misses with my steadfast first mate, Tom, whose dry wit cut through the fog like a beacon, and the eager young deckhand Kennedy, whose wide-eyed questions recalled my own faded youth. Cynicism had crept in over the years, born of relentless gales and the petty squabbles of men confined at sea. Yet it was tempered by the unspoken bonds we forged, a no-nonsense camaraderie that kept the ship steady. Still, in the quiet hours, faint shadows stirred, recurring dreams of endless empty waters where the stars burned too brightly, too knowingly, dismissed as fatigue, and over tankards in the mess, the crew's half-joking murmurs of old yarns about hungry lights lurking in the depths, chuckles masking a subtle chill that lingered unnoticed amid the humdrum rhythm of our voyage from New York to Liverpool. On the third night of the voyage, I stood on the bridge, scanning the horizon through the salt-flecked glass, my calloused hands gripping the wheel from a lifetime at sea. The stars above scattered brilliantly, like diamonds tossed across black velvet. But something felt off, a subtle itch at the back of my mind I couldn't place. Then it happened. One star, brighter than the others, streaked unnaturally low, not falling like a meteor, but descending with purpose, as if drawn by an invisible thread. I rubbed my eyes, blaming fatigue. But soon a cluster followed, plunging toward the water like silent predators. Their light pierced the darkness with an otherworldly glow, cold and pulsing, not the warm twinkle of distant suns. I stared in paralyzed shock as another of these stars unveiled its monstrous form, a glowing, tentacled being twisting with ghostly appendages that gleamed like deep-sea creatures, but with an unmistakable malice. It seized a far-off fishing boat about a mile away, wrapping sinuously around the ship in a deceptively elegant manner that masked its terror. Weak cries carried across the waves, frail and urgent, then vanished suddenly, as though the sea had devoured them entirely. My chest tightened with cold dread, gripping like icy fingers and distorting my sense of reality. The air grew thicker, the waves murmuring secrets I rationalized as mere wind. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was an intrusion, shattering the routine I'd clung to for years. I shook off the paralysis and hit the alarm, rallying the crew with barked orders ringing through the corridors. All hands! Something out there! Get to your stations!" Tom arrived first, his face etched with the skepticism of a man who'd seen every trick the sea could throw. I pointed to the horizon, but the lights had faded, leaving only the bobbing silhouette of an empty fishing boat. Instruments malfunctioned, compass spinning wildly, radar flickering with phantom blips, as if a larger force bent the rules of the world I thought I knew. Doubt crept in, alongside a burning curiosity mixed with fear. Those descending lights, they had to be feeding something immense below, an abyssal hunger pulling them down like offerings. I confided in Tom later that night in the mess hall, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as we nursed black coffee. It wasn't a meteor, Tom. I saw it. Tentacles, light, screams, like it was alive. He leaned back, crossing his arms, his dry wit surfacing. "Captain, you've been staring at the stars too long. Meteor shower, maybe some bioluminescence from the water. Let's not spook the lads with ghost stories." But I saw the flicker in his eyes, the unspoken question. I didn't press it. Instead, I retreated to my cabin and scribbled in my journal, words pouring out. "The stars are falling, not as debris, but as hunters. What do they serve? Something waits in the depths, and I fear we're sailing right into its maw." Night after night, the entries lengthened, my fixation intensifying, hinting at the immense, waiting horror beneath the waves. As we pressed on, the descending stars grew more invasive, swarms circling the SS horizon, their luminous forms twisted like living comets, casting erratic shadows that danced like flames in the wind across the deck. One evening, as I stood watch, the entities devoured a distant tanker with horrifying speed. Their glowing forms swarmed it, appendages rupturing the metal, while the sailors' anguished yells twisted and faded far in the distance, as if pulled into the watery void. Beneath us, the ocean rippled unnaturally, pulled by a hidden force from the depths, carving eerie depressions into the waves. My nights blurred into a haze of escalating hallucinations. I'd catch glimpses in the corners of my vision, water heaving like a living thing, shadows coiling just beneath the surface. Desperate for answers, I pored over dusty nautical logs from long-past voyages in the chart room. Fragmented anecdotes from ancient mariners emerged, tales of starborn feeders that harvested surface life to nourish a colossal entity in the ocean's trenches. This being, they claimed, originated from cosmic voids, not Earth. A remnant of a primordial catastrophe that seeded the deep with insatiable hunger. As I cross-referenced them, patterns appeared. Attacks aligning with lunar cycles, waxing and waning like tides of doom. Sporadic radio distress calls crackled in, survivors' accounts evoking shared dread, voices pleading about lights that pulled you down to feed the mother. Isolation gnawed at us all. Crew members succumbed to paranoia. Murmurs in the engine room turned to accusations, eyes darting at every shadow. Alliances fractured when Kennedy vanished during his watch one foggy dawn. We searched the ship top to bottom, my heart pounding as I called his name into the void. Hours later, he reappeared on the forecastle, disoriented and pale, his eyes wide and hollow. "I saw it, Captain," he muttered, clutching my arm. "The monstrosity's vast form, eyes like black holes, feeding on the stars. It called to me." We chalked it up to delirium, but his words lingered, eroding our fragile morale. Temporary reprieves came, like a calm dawn where the stars retreated to their rightful places, offering false hope. We'd laugh it off over breakfast, but the terror persisted through unreliable witnesses. We rescued a delirious survivor from a drifting lifeboat, his skin blistered and eyes wild. He babbled conflicting tales, one moment swearing the lights were angels come to save him, the next describing them as demons dragging souls to hell. "It hungers for the light in us," he rasped before collapsing. Each night my journal entries grew longer, my obsession mounting, foreshadowing the vast, patient monstrosity lurking below. My doubt intensified, blurring rational explanations with the inexplicable. Was it magnetic anomalies, solar flares, or something far worse? I questioned my sanity amid the mounting threats, the sea murmuring lies, or truths I couldn't bear, threatening to pull us all under. The attacks grew bolder, swarms probing closer, their tendrils brushing the hull with a hiss like steam escaping a pressure valve. One night, as thunderheads gathered on the horizon, a smaller, light entity latched onto our stern, and I felt the ship shudder. I grabbed a flare gun and fired into the night, the burst illuminating a writhing mass of translucent flesh that recoiled, but not before it claimed one of the lifeboats, splintering it like matchwood. Tensions boiled over into fights in the galley, with shouts claiming someone was calling them down. Tom tried to mediate, but even he looked shaken, his usual composure cracking. I spent hours in the radio room, piecing together lore from static-laced broadcasts, accounts of similar events in the Bermuda Triangle and Mariana Trench, places where the veil between worlds thinned. Survivors described a cycle, feeders descending during full moons, harvesting to appease the entity below, which grew stronger with each feeding. Kennedy's visions haunted me. He'd sketch crude drawings in his bunk of vast shapes with tentacles spanning miles, eyes burning with stolen starlight. When another crewman, old Hargrove, went missing, we found his boots on the deck, smeared with luminescent slime that glowed faintly before fading. The isolation deepened our dread. Supplies ran low as we altered course to avoid the swarms, but they followed, inexorable. A calm afternoon brought deceptive peace. We spotted land birds, a sign we neared the Azores, but nightfall shattered it. Suddenly, more swirled in a vortex around us, bathing the waves in eerie hues. Beneath us, the ocean rippled unnaturally, forming impossible hollows in the waves. I felt the pull in my bones, a subtle draw toward the deep, as if the sea's hidden force had turned the world upside down. Hallucinations intensified, faces in the water, twisted echoes of lost sailors, mouths open in silent screams. The rescued survivor died in his sleep, muttering about the mother's embrace. leaving us with only more questions. Crew dynamics fractured further. Tom and I argued on the bridge, his dismissal giving way to anger. "This is madness, Captain. You're letting fear steer the ship." But I saw doubt in him now, the way he glanced uneasily at the stars. Meanwhile, Kennedy became a ghost, wandering the decks at odd hours, murmuring to shadows. We lost all radio contact with the mainland as instruments failed one by one. GPS offline, sonar pinging impossible depths. The ocean's ripples intensified, waves forming unnatural patterns like fingerprints on the surface. In my cabin, I pored over maps, connecting the dots. Every attack site formed a spiral converging on our position. The lore described the entity as a void mother, birthing feeders from cosmic debris and sustaining itself on life essence. I watched in frozen disbelief as one of these stars revealed its true nature. A luminous, tentacle-like entity writhing with ethereal tendrils that shimmered like bioluminescent jellyfish, yet far more sinister. It latched onto a distant fishing vessel, perhaps a mile out, its form coiling around the hull with a grace that belied its horror. Faint screams carried over the water, thin and desperate, before an abrupt silence fell, as if the ocean had swallowed them whole. A distress call from a nearby yacht confirmed the nightmare, crackling with static before a final plea.
"It's rising. The hunger."
Tensions boiled over as two deckhands accused each other of sabotage, erupting in a brawl that left one with a broken arm. I broke it up, but the trust was shattered. A brief storm provided cover, driving the swarms away, but it was a hollow victory. Dawn revealed debris floating around us, splintered wood, oil slicks, a child's doll bobbing forlornly. The survivor we'd rescued had left a note before dying. "Don't fight it. It wants the light." Doubt warred with my conviction. Was I leading us to doom? Or was this the inevitable? The murmurs in the wind grew louder, almost forming words now, promising oblivion. The storm reached its height at midnight, the sky boiling with lightning and torrential rain that battered the decks relentlessly. From the bridge, I witnessed a horde of those anomalous lights plummeting toward the SS horizon in a coordinated onslaught. They sliced through the wind, casting erratic beams across the turbulent sea, and I knew this was it, the dreaded unveiling. Alarms blared as tentacles of light breached the hull, splintering metal with a screech that drowned out the thunder. "All hands below! Seal the compartments!" I shouted, grabbing a flashlight and leading a desperate rush into the lower decks, my boots pounding on the grated floors amid the chaos of shouting men and creaking bulkheads. Water flooded in, cold and black, carrying the acrid scent of ozone mixed with the sharp bite of blood. Through the breaches I glimpsed the colossal, star-born monstrosity rising from the depths. A writhing mass of abyssal flesh and cosmic voids, an amalgamation of devoured ships and crews, pulsing with stolen life. Tentacles thicker than masts coiled upward, eyes like voids sucking in light, hulls of vessels embedded in its hide like scars. Beneath us, the ocean rippled unnaturally, tugged by an unseen gravity from below, forming impossible hollows in the waves. The entity's pull hit me then, a warping horror that stretched seconds into eternities and thickened the air until every breath was a struggle. Betrayal struck like a knife when Tom, his face twisted in madness, blocked our escape in the engine room.
It's calling us, Captain. We have to feed it. End the pain.
He lunged with a wrench, forcing me into a mortal dilemma. Abandon him to his delusion, or risk the crew's lives to save him. I hesitated, memories of our shared voyages flashing, his laughter, his loyalty. But survival won. I shoved him aside, yelling for the others to run, his screams ringing as the light tendrils closed in. The revelation intensified as the creature's essence permeated my thoughts, unveiling scenes of its timeless devouring ritual, celestial remnants plummeting like spores, evolving into gatherers that reaped vital energies to fuel its relentless voracity, an extraterrestrial blight that hollowed out entire realms from their cores. Self-doubt crashed over me. Had my curiosity drawn it closer? Was I the catalyst? Raw horror intensified, unfiltered dread clawing at my sanity. The assault culminated in irreversible transformations for some of the crew. I watched in horror as Hargrove's body contorted, bones cracking while luminous veins spread through his skin, turning him into an extension of the entity, his eyes glowing with stolen starlight. He reached for me with a guttural moan, but I evaded, scrambling up a ladder as the ship's remnants groaned, sinking toward the depths. Water rose around my ankles, the pool intensifying and dragging everything downward. Kennedy vanished in the melee, his final cry lost to the roar. I burst onto the deck, rain pelting my face. The monstrosity's form breaching fully now, waves parting like flesh before it. Swarms circled overhead, tendrils lashing out to claim more men who screamed as they were pulled under. I clung to the railing, my mind reeling from visions of eternal cycles and endless hunger, wondering if escape was possible, or if we were all just fuel for the void. The ship listed, decks buckling, and I felt the cold embrace of the deep reaching up. But I fought on, grasping for a life preserver amid the unending horror. As the SS Horizon's bow plunged into the roiling deep, I hurled myself into the last lifeboat, my hands raw and bleeding from the frantic scramble. A few survivors followed, 5 men, their faces masks of terror, clambering aboard as the ship's dying groans rang like thunder. We cut the lines just as a massive tentacle, veined with pulsing light, smashed through the deck, sending metal shards flying into the night. The monstrosity loomed colossal in the storm's flashes, a leviathan of fused wreckage and cosmic hunger, its void eyes locking onto us with a soul-piercing gaze. I rode with desperate fury, waves dragging at us like grasping hands, while behind, the horizon vanished in a vortex of swirling lights and churning foam, claiming the rest of my crew in its insatiable maw. Adrift for days under an indifferent sky, we rationed meager supplies, our bodies battered by exposure and grief. But the horror didn't end with the ship. Faint lights danced on the horizon each night, mocking our escape and hinting that the entity's reach was boundless, a shadow stretching across the ocean's grave. In the quiet delirium of exhaustion, its voice invaded my mind. Not words, but intricate soliloquies woven into hallucinations profound and damning. It warned of destiny's unyielding grasp, how our daring expedition into uncharted waters tainted the soul, awakening a primordial evil that mirrored mankind's presumptuous domination of the oceans. It declared we were not pioneers, but sacrifices. Our overconfidence the bait that drew it from the depths. The visions replayed our losses. Tom's betrayal, Kennedy's cry, Hargrove's grotesque transformation. Each but a thread in its eternal web of consumption. We washed ashore at a remote Azorian port, a cluster of weathered huts clinging to volcanic rock, where indifferent fishermen hauled us from the surf. Scarred and hollow, I carried the weight of survival like a curse. My body healed, but my mind fractured. The stars above no longer offered peace. They burned with judgmental fire, a reminder that the cosmos was a predator's playground. In the port's dim tavern, I salvaged a radio log from our wreckage, a garbled recording of those final screams, etched onto a tape humming with unnatural static. I buried it, but rumors still spread, tales of crews listening to similar recordings, only to vanish at sea. The lights summoned anew by that digital siren call. Or perhaps the true peril lay in the universal taboo I'd glimpsed, gazing too long at the night sky, inviting the feeders to descend upon us all, a vulnerability that now haunted my every upward glance. Even now, alone in the dim glow of my lamp, I ponder if that creature was always part of us. Did it emerge from the emptiness? Or was it spawned from our inner shadows, a reflection of our own void? The unease lingers unresolved as the stars overhead watch patiently, eternal, awaiting the next foolhardy voyage. As I extinguish this lamp, I ponder if the rushing darkness is merely the night, or the entity, finally closing its grasp around my weary soul. Join us inside the void, listener. Tell us of your grave misfortunes on r/ancientmalicious. Give us your gold, your treasures, your time. Join the subscription cult. Become like us. Become one with us.